Everyone, how are you doing? Good to see you. Well, it's Friday. Yep. And well, it's either, the end of the week or middle of the week. Depends on how you look at Fridays. Hard to really say. But hope you're doing all right and that the world is treating you good. And welcome everyone here. Um, been watching some of the comments as I was preparing to go live and thought, well, I love the comments, We've got an enlightened group. Hello, Deborah. How are you doing? Jerry, good to see you. Val, how are you? Constance, good to see you. Deborah Tucker, how are you? By the way, tonight we'll be having Anja and Deborah on. And I've kind of looking at a title. It's basically creating the magic in you. We're going to be talking about how you can create your own magic alchemy. Deborah's an alchemist, and there's many alchemists amongst us. We just got to begin to get the thing together. Hello, Hedley. Hedley, how you doing? Good to see you. Just welcome to everyone. Hello, Wayne. How are you doing? People were just listening to this. They think he's talking to himself. I do. I talk to myself all the time. So anyway, the thought of invisibility. I did find this rather, well, one cannot deny the synchronicity of it. And I'm pulling this up so we can all share in this together here. So let me put that up over here. And so this article came up. Terminator tank with invisibility cloaking will fight future wars. Well, there you go. Weird. So, I get this that I've been studying in much more in depth on the whole invisibility, the spirit. When you start looking at the spirit, the spirit person that's you, wow, it's deep. I mean, even all the religions combined, everything that I have read thus far and looked into, meditated on, pontificated about, yes, we do. Looking at Hadley, we do. That's why I don't look at the comments all the time. I look at them going, yeah, well, we do talk to ourselves. In fact, the reality is, the honesty of the statement would be, intellectually honest, is that we do. We're a triune being, and we have remarkable discussions with ourselves. And it's quite unique when you begin to think about the spirit. And so what is more real? The spirit part of us, the body part of us, or the mind that interfaces? I put a little presentation together, because that's what I do, and it's how we learn. So the old copyright disclaimer, I'll give it its appropriate time. I actually ought to copyright myself. Seems like I'm being quoted quite often these days. The invisible you, which is really the true you. Now, depending on what your flavor of tea is and what you put into your tea, you're going to have your own take on it. That's the unique thing about us. I think it's the unique thing about the 7 principles, is that it teaches that there is capacity for trillions, unlimited amount of spirits, sentient beings, some sovereign, some not. But one of the things that, if we say our existence on this temporal plane is reality, then without a doubt, to the individual, that upon their death, they're going to be hoping in something, even if they believe in nothing. To those who believe that, that there is absolutely nothing, when you die, lights out, that's still a belief. No matter how you slice it and dice it, package it, and deliver it, it's still a belief. And so, taking that the step further, then that would imply, implicitly, by the way, that next realm would be the realm of the unseen. Unless the next plane is just another remake of this plane. So no. The invisible. The invisible is actually more real than material substance. And this is one of the things I hope we're all learning. Two things. Substance. Substance, without substance, materiality doesn't exist. Mentality does. The mental doesn't need substance. But for the material, substance has to be in play. Now, the thing about substance, though, substance collapses all material things. And all material things are made of substance. Our bodies are substance that materialize in what we call flesh and blood. Now, spirit is not substance. Thus, spirit is not subject to the laws that govern substance. There's a hierarchy here. Remember, you can't violate the 7 principles, but what you can use in the law of correspondence and the law of cause and effect is that you can use laws that take a hierarchy to other laws. So we're dealing with 2 different realms here. The spirit gives substance, material matter. But spirit is outside space and time, and spirit is invisible. And if you start breaking these down into their singular components, you have amazing understanding awaiting you. I have been fortunate to receive so many emails around the world. People writing, saying how they are becoming free. All ages. And this should be one of the key foundations, your cornerstone, if you have any doubt or reservation. Your spirit is invisible. But without the spirit, substance has no form. It would be considered a potential element within the ether, if not the ether itself. And so it requires spirit to give thought. It's very interesting. That's why the spirit realm trumps the physical realm, and then lower realms beyond that. Spirit is outside space and time. We're immersed into a space-time continuum on this plane of existence. That's the weird trip. And each of us experience it. It's like going into, well, there was, I think it was Star Trek, the movie Generations, where they were going into the ribbon. That's exactly what we are. Each of us are immersed into a substance material reality. Its parameters are set in which there are boundaries by which it's constructed, but it never prevents those who participate in it to immerse themselves out of it. And it could be said that that's what the birthright is. So spirit is of the invisible, that which is of the unseen. It's not substance. It is not matter. Very important key elements to remember. A person is actually more invisible than visible. Think about this. You are spirit. Above any and everything else, you are spirit. You're corporeal and incorporeal. And that's why the seven principles make so much sense to us. When you remove the God spell from it, the manipulator that comes in and tries to manipulate the seven laws, the seven principles, it's where it gets screwed up. But if you just look at them as for what they are, that's why it makes sense. It explains a lot about what all of us are seeking to understand. The spirit within us. And you can just go by reading the comments. In this recent series that's now going into its third, fourth week, what's happening? People's lives are changing. And it's designed to do exactly what it was built for. It's not so much, I don't know if it's knowledge, if it is understanding. My understanding has increased exponentially. And from what the emails I'm reading, so are yours. So a person, again, is actually more invisible than visible. Consider your body. You're breathing, but yet you cannot see the air nor your lungs. You can feel the effect of both, obviously, but you still can't see that unseen element. Now, we have ways in which we can make it visible. We can break down its components, but no matter how you want to say it, it's invisible. We do it automatically. That's the other component we're going to talk about as we get continued into the Hermetica, is that what is causing these auto responses. Because the mind is not actually conscious of the effect of how it's working. Mind is separate almost from this autonomous mechanical function that goes automatically. Now, the question we're going to get further into it, does spirit oversee this function, or is this a function of an operation on a total separate basis? But again, you cannot see the mixing of the elements, yet we breathe. As we get into Franz's books, the initiation into Hermetics, we're going to learn the most interesting thing about our skin is that we really don't need a set of lungs. There's something else going on. The skin has every function, operation to breathe for us. In fact, as medical science is finding out, our skin actually does breathe. In much the same way it aids in injecting chemicals into the circulation system. You go out in the sun, it converts it into vitamin D. We put lotion to replenish the collagen that this environment sucks out of us. I mean, so think about it. It's quite fascinating. They say you can get to the point to where you can actually, sense much more with just the touch. People who lose their sight find this out very quickly. So here's the goal for all of us. So this should be on your list. I hope you got your books. You're serious about this. You're going to start keeping your daily diaries. I did mine right here. The thoughts will come. And when the spirits see that you're in fact serious about this and you start writing, very important, when we get into the prosperity part of this, you're going to find, and I'm going to be sharing with you some material that's been sent by people in the community. To begin, you have to write it down because it's something that's very interesting. Remember, a spirit can't write, at least not in this physical reality, unless it is of such a hierarchy, very difficult for a spirit to speak in this realm. That's why we have instrumentation now that we can get into the frequencies and we can hear the voices of the spirit realm. So you have to write. In fact, if you write, you'll be surprised how many times they'll start talking to you. So the goal for this purpose, these series of exercises, is that there is a place where you can live in a state of consciousness of perpetual favor. Now, men and women throughout the pantheon of man's history have been able to do this. In fact, I'm convinced our ancestors knew this much, much better than we did. We're just rediscovering it. I think that this was taught in communities. It may be an account for why we find certain societies in different parts of the world that just suddenly disappear outside of the normal natural phenomenon that would cause migration. So the spirit, when the spirit part of you, now your spirit is active no matter what. You may not give much attention to your spirit, but it's there. But when you really become awaken, and I hate to use that term because it's so cliche-ish these days, has to be a better word. The one that I was told to use is that when the spirit becomes activated, it begins to create. It's what it does. It is an exact image, emulation of the all, the mind of the cosmos. We were designed to create. You know what I found fascinating was that one person, not one, made any comment to the statement that I made, that I am in training. This is my sojourn to complete the training so I can take my rightful position among the gods. It's where we're all headed, folks. And one of the techniques that we're going to have to get down is to learn how to create and be aware of that. take control of it. Many of us do it all, we do it subconsciously. You could say the supermind, superconscious. So when it becomes activated, it creates a reality within our existing reality, breaking none of the 7 principles. That's why we're all in this. We call it the term the matrix. But however you want to define it, we are all immersed into a framework that has boundaries within it, limitations set upon it. But those who are immersed in it are not bound by it. We're not made of it. Our bodies are. Therefore, our bodies have to comply to the principles that govern that principle, that law of matter. But our spirits are just here for the experience. And that's really what it is. It's nothing but an experience. Now, how you want to define your experience is going to be determined upon your reality of your exit. You see, once seated by spirit, and how do we do that? Well, you should be learning your concentration exercises. You should be at the point now where you're visualizing. And on Monday, we're going to go deep into lesson 2 in how to begin to form objects where you can actually create them in your mind. It's called plasticity. It's very interesting. Those of you who have the book, you know what I'm talking about. So once seated by the Spirit, this new reality is formed within an existing reality, and this new reality begins to affect and impact our existing reality. Now, this has been emulated by all religions. They capitalize on this. That's why you can have healing services where bones grow. People blind can see. People in wheelchairs can get up. That's the power of this reality that can be created when spirit gets involved. It doesn't need a religious, how should we say, injection to activate. It's activated by you. Straight up. Now, this is the interesting part. Sovereignty of spirit. Now, not all have spirit. We've already learned in the Hermetica that not everybody's got spirit. Everyone has been given reason, but not all have been given what we would call mind. Now, those that have spirit, which we're assuming all of us do, of course, no one wants to be on the other side. It's like, the hell you say? That's when you're going to throw down and go, Jack. You're talking about my spirit. So here's the deal, though. You see, once spirit begins to exercise its sovereignty, it seeks to create, because this is what spirit does. You can't help but not to. Hear me on this. How many of you have suddenly gotten re-excited about life again? Where there was despair, now there's not only hope, but a key. How many have suddenly, the questions that raged, you now have peace. And with this, your spirit is gaining sovereignty. And that's a requirement before we can pass to become the gods. Someone asked me in an email, and I'll just go say it out here to everyone. There's two references. In the book of Psalms, it talks very distinctly that we are, in fact, gods. And in the book of Hebrews as well. So now, when mind becomes aware of spirit and are joined in unionship, spirit can create a separate state of consciousness. And this is the goal for all of us, to be able to live in this temporal plane of existence, creating a state of consciousness created by our spirit. And when mind joins, this is the green light for the subconscious mind. This new state of consciousness exists outside the altered state of consciousness that we live in, that we call reality. And this new created state of consciousness is higher in rank. The spirit can create multiple new states of consciousness and occupy all of them at the same time. You can literally exist in separate state of consciousness for any type of situation. Let me give you a what-if scenario. You're learning these principles. Let's take it into the workplace. And you're in a working environment where you're beginning to become more and more awake. And it's becoming more difficult for you to continue to interact with your coworkers because you're beginning to see things as they really are. However, your job requires that you do that. So what do? Well, normally in the past, what you have done is that you found yourself compromising a particular standard of yours, and there's nothing wrong having your own personal standards. Knowing your own limitations, that's wise. Or you just allowed that energy, that negative energy that caused you so much stress, just to be absorbed into your body, subsequently your soul. Now, you can create with spirit and mind a state of consciousness that you can be immersed into that, and you transmute the energy. You reverse the polarity. That is creating a new state of consciousness. Now, why the exercise of a word? What a single word can become is an activator that ignites on a level few know about and even fewer experience while in this current realm of this state of consciousness. Spirit transmutes a word into active force that changes one energy into another. This can be both positive or negative. The state of consciousness of the spirit determines the polarity of the energy. You see? Yeah, you can say this is magic. You're changing energy. You're changing substance from one state to another. Remarkable. And that's why it is said of the lost languages, I think you can go back further than the Egyptians, the Atlanteans, I think that they're is in fact the knowledge back then of the word. Um, the ancient Hebrews knew this. They knew the power of a word. Now, you can see the charlatans that use it today in manipulation, those that easily can manipulate weak minds. And they can do this by inserting a suggestion, a word. But us initiates, we're learning how we can take a word and reverse that. A word can be an activator for you in a stressful situation. I found a story the other day here, happened up in in Boulder. A young woman was accosted by three males into a car. And she determined that they were not going to change her reality. Now, that determination, and I'd be curious to see what was her word trigger. I mean, that was definitely what you would say a life-threatening, life-altering event. But she took command by a stronger spirit and altered the situation. That's what you have to become in every situation. And you do that by understanding the number one, you're invisible, you're immersed into this reality. We understand that. But look, think about a word. A word can be anything in any type of a stressful situation to where you then be able to have the ability to transmute that energy. Use that which was formed against you to your benefit. And remember, the polarity is all important here. When a spirit ascends to the hierarchy of the body and mind, the mind and body transcends mortality. It does. And this is what I think that we're all looking to get towards ourselves. So, yeah, there you go. Give me 1 second. Here I'm back. So, yeah, interesting. So, precept upon precept, concept upon concept. So let's get into this because I really want to get in this part of reading the Hermetica. This is the Greek corpus Hermeticum. Now, this is the discourse Hermes having to Tat, his son, that God is invisible and entirely visible. This discourse I shall also deliver to you in full, O Tat, lest you go uninitiated. None of us want to go uninitiated into the mysteries of the God who is greater than any name. You must understand how something that seems invisible to the multitude will become entirely visible to you. Actually, if it were not invisible, it would not always be. Everything seen has been begotten because at some point it came to be seen. But the invisible always is. And because it always is, it does not need to come to be seen. Also, while remaining invisible because it always is, it makes all other things visible. The very entity that makes visibility does not make itself visible. What begats is not itself begotten. What presents images of everything is not present to the imagination. For there is imagination only of things begotten. Coming to be is nothing but imagination. Clearly, The one who alone is unbegotten is also unimagined and invisible. But in presenting images of all things, he is seen through all of them and in all of them. He is seen especially by those whom he wished to see him. You then, Tat, my child, pray first to the Lord, the Father, and not only who is not one, but from whom the one comes, ask him the grace to enable you to understand so great a God, to permit even one ray of his illuminated to your thinking. Only understanding, because it too is invisible, sees the invisible. And if you have the strength, Tat, your mind's eye will see it. For the Lord, who is ungrudging, is seen through the entire cosmos. Can you see understanding and hold it in your hands? Can you have a vision of the image of God? What is in you is also invisible to you. How will God reveal his inner self to you through the eyes? If you want to see God, consider the sun. Consider the circuit of the moon. Consider the order of the stars. Who keeps this order? For every order is bound in number and in place. The sun, the greatest God of those in heaven, to whom all heavenly gods submit as to a king and ruler, this sun is very great, larger than earth and sea. Allow stars smaller than him to circle above him. To whom does he defer, my child? Whom does he fear? Does not each of these stars in heavens make the same circuit or a similar one? Who determined the direction and the size of the circuit of each of them? Who owns this instrument, this bear, the one that turns around itself and carries the whole cosmos with it? Who sets limits to the sea? Who settled the earth in place? There is someone, Tat, who is maker and master of all of this. Without someone to make them, neither place nor number nor measure could have been maintained. Everything that is an order has been made only something placeless and measureless that cannot be made. That can be not made. But even this does not lack a master. Even if the unordered is deficient that is, in that it does not retain the character of order, it is still subject to a master who has not yet imposed order upon it. That's just far out. I mean, if you want to have a definition of chaos, chance, it just hasn't had order imposed upon it. And as I see that word imposed, isn't that interesting? If you're imposing something, that means there is a repelling force. Anyway, we can get that later. Would that you grow wings and fly up in the air, lifted between earth and heaven, and see the solid earth and fluid sea, the streaming rivers, the pleasant air, the piercing fire, the coursing stars in heaven speeding on its axis about the same points. My question is, how did he know this? How did he describe of what you would see by seeing up in the air? Stuff all through. You're going, well, how would he know that? Because that's exactly what it would be. Oh, this is a most happy sight to see, my child. To have a vision of all these in a single instant. To see the motionless set in motion and the invisible made visible through the things that it makes. This is the order of the cosmos, and this is the cosmos of order. If you wish also to see the vision through mortal things on earth, and in the deep, my child, consider how the human being is crafted in the womb. Examine the skill of the craftwork carefully and learn who it is that crafts this beautiful, godlike image of mankind, who traced the lines around the eyes, who pierced the holes for nostrils and ears, who opened up the mouth, who stretched out the sinew and tied them down, who made channels for the veins, who hardened the bones, who drew skin over the flesh, who parted the fingers, who flattened the bottom of the feet, who cut passages for the pores, who stretched out the spleen, who made the heart in the form of a pyramid. Did you ever think about that, ladies and gentlemen? Your heart is in the form of a pyramid. Who joined the ribs together? Who flattened the liver? Who hollowed out the lungs? Who made the belly spacious? Who set the most honored parts in relief to make them visible, but hid the shameful parts away? See how many skills have been applied to the same single material. How many labors within the compass of a single work, all of them exquisite things and finely measured, yet all different. Who made them all? What sort of mother or what sort of father, if not the invisible God who crafted them all by his own will? No one claims that a statue or a picture has been produced unless there is a sculptor or a painter. Has the crafted work been produced without a craftsman? Then, oh, how full of blindness, how full of irreverence, how full of ignorance. Tat, my child, never deprive the craft works of their craftsman. Or rather, he is stronger than a name used of God. So great is the Father of all. Surely it is he alone whose work it is to be a father. If you force me to say something still more daring, it is his essence to be pregnant with all things and to make them. As it is impossible for anything to be produced without a maker, so also is it impossible for this maker not to exist always, unless he is always making everything in heaven, in the air, on the earth, in the deep, and every part of the cosmos, and every part of the universe, and what is in, what is not. For there is nothing in all the cosmos that he is not. He is himself the things that are and those that are not. Those that are, he made visible. Those that are not, he holds within him. This is the God who is greater than any name. This is the God visible and entirely invisible. Excuse me, I had that backward. The God that is invisible and entirely visible. This God who is evident to the eyes may be seen in the mind. He is bodiless and many-bodied, or rather, he is all-bodied. There is nothing that he is not, for he also is all that is. And this is why he has all names, because they are of one Father. And this is why he has no name, because he is Father of them all. When you pray, who may praise you, then acting on your behalf or according to your purpose? And where shall I look to praise you? Above, below, within, without. For there is no direction about you, nor place, nor any other being. All is within you, all comes from you. You give everything and take nothing. For you have it all, and there is nothing that you do not have. Folks, this passage right here, if you got lack in your life, this right here, and by the way, I could take you to the Christian Bible. I can take you to the Torah. I think I even take you probably to the Quran if I know this place that I'm thinking about. It says that the universe is abundant. God, we can't contain the image of God into a name, but that which we call God, there is no lack. He didn't create a universe that ran out of things. Yeah. When shall I sing a hymn to you? One cannot detect you in time or season. For what shall I sing the hymn? For what you have made or what you have not made, for what you have made visible or what you have kept hidden. And wherefore shall I sing the hymn to you? For being something that is part of me, or has a special property, or is something apart. For you are whatever I am. You are whatever I make. You are whatever I say. You are everything, and there is nothing else what is not. You are as well. You are all that has come to be. You are what has not come to be. You are the mind who understands, the Father who makes his craft work, and God who acts, and the good who makes all things. The matter composed of the finest particles is air, but air is soul, soul is mind, and mind is God. Well, there you go, folks. Now, this is such cool stuff. Well, I'm going to end this because I'm looking forward to tonight's program. It's all weaving together, folks. And I hope to see that all of us can begin to create our own magic. You know, my radio show last night, I said the only way that we're going to turn the United States of hate around is to stop the hating. And the only way that's going to be done is we can't just all come together and sing Kumbaya Law. We have to invoke the forces. We have to transmute the energy. And that there's one thing that you can teach those around you who are opening up is to start learning to transmute energy. It'll change your life. It'll lower your blood pressure. It will begin to have every organ begin to work in harmony. It will begin to seek out the rhythm, the vibration, the polarity. This is what happens. And the more that we become aware of that, the stronger it gets. For our enemies, I use the word favor because favor is all encompassing. I think blessing has been, unfortunately, so diminished in its importance. So when we think of favor, when I think of favor, you can call it grace, but it encompasses everything. And if a person is speaking something that is of evil, harmful, well, just by thinking that individual with favor changes the polarity and transmutes the energy. You want to change the vibration in your home? Lynn and our house, people who walk in all comment. Even people who are soliciting. There's a peace. There's a tangible peace and serenity. And the house, when there's a negative influence that comes in, counters it. Now, I cleanse this house almost daily, spiritually. The more we learn, the more you have to begin to put into action. I heard Jeff say today that it's when you are pressed into a situation that you start applying these principles to, when you see the results is when you really do believe. And the first step to that is gaining the understanding. How many of you have memorized the 7 principles? If you haven't, you ought to get busy to do it. You should be able to quote it off. Mentalization, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender, excuse me. Yeah. And why? Because out of the abundance, the heart speaks. The mouth speaks, excuse me. Well, that's a Freudian slip, but actually it's very true. The heart does speak. And to be candid with you, sometimes your spirit needs to be retrained. They say that human beings have the propensity to be lazy, to procrastinate. Of course, no one does that here. Yeah. And so if you have young children, they'll begin to respond. If you have a cacophony of noise and mixture of energies running through because you have a growing family, I dig it. That's real. It's and particularly with children, young children. You know, they're highly receptive to energy. They put off a lot of energy. And if they're immersed into these fields of understanding, they'll start emulating the same frequency, the same rhythm. And then as they get older and understand the laws of polarity, wow, you could have young Harry Potters running everywhere, couldn't you? And the animals and the neighbors respond too. Allie, that is absolutely correct. You know, it changes everything. I'll tell you another blessing. I'll share one with you. I haven't written this down, but I have practiced it for decades. It works. If you want to start protecting your property from energy assaults, you need to walk your property and start speaking favor over your property. Now, and I still believe this still works. There are those spirits called angels that still work for the good of mankind. You know, just because I don't believe in the religion, there's truths that you should be able to be wise enough and have enough discernment to realize what is true. Now, here's my point. Put those spirits to work, those angels. Put them to guard your property. Walk your property and speak the following thing. Every step my foot takes is protected. I hereby put you in charge. Now, if you want to put the word angel in there, that's fine. You can put the word energy, spirit in there. Entity. But those who are for you are not against you. And you put them on guard. They are not to relinquish for 1 millisecond, guarding that which is yours. That's part of favor. And you do that, then you do a cleansing ceremony on the building itself. If you've never done that, you need to do that. You need to lay your hands physically on your walls and start speaking your energy. Because walls retain energy. It's like frying fish. You go in the house the next day, it stinks. And some of the energy stinks. It's got to be cleansed. Okay. There we go. But it works. It does. Never had one problem. Never. I've had people say that you sense that there was potential ill intent. Say that they felt a presence. You bet your ass they felt a presence. Guarantee it. I don't need to see it to know that it's real. You know what I'm saying? I know my wife loves me. I don't need to see that love. I know it. It exists. So there you go. So what about salt? Yes, salt is, and let me tell you about salt. If you can get The less refined salt, the better. And many people have asked me, well, how do you get cleansing salt? You can literally do your own blessing over it. Remember, your hands have dramatic energy that's transmutable, transferable. And you speak it over the sacred salt. I actually have my sacred salt that I use, and it's just the way it's an element, folks. It's an element. It's part of what will eventually, I hope we're going to learn tonight with Deborah and Andrea. We're going to learn how we can begin to mix elements, and we're going to have more people in the future, more alchemists, more magicians, witches, whatever you want to call it. We're going to learn our own magic, and every one of us should be equipped to begin to rely. And let me just say this. So the event that happened down in the Southeast was terrible. I mean, it's anytime there's a loss of life, property. But isn't it odd how people say, well, our thoughts and prayers are for you? Who are you praying to? What are you praying? See where this goes? Now, do I believe that there are those who could ascend into a position to where they could have stood in the midst of that? Yeah. But then there's the other side of wisdom that would say, why? Shawnee, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. May it be returned back to you 100-fold. You see, we're going to be wise. One of the things, and I'll just share this again. I was going to end this 10 minutes ago, but anyway, it needs to be said then. There was a time when I was on my own, very young, 16, I'll tell you. And the people that I was hanging around were 2-3 years older. Anyway, there was this girl, and I remember we were in a van, and I think we were going to a concert. And she looked at me and she said, you know what you need? And I was pretty buzzed. And I don't know, I said something smart. And she said, you need to learn discretion. I'm convinced that that was my spirit guide speaking. And maybe it's speaking to you. Learn discretion. Judge the spirits. Weigh it. All right, folks, be good to yourself. See you tonight. Hey, Raven Wolf, we're going to have Raven Wolf's going to be on. So get you the details on that. Looking forward to that as well. All right, folks, namaste to all of you. May peace be your constant companion, and may peace reign supreme in your house. May every door and every soul that walks in know that peace reigns supreme in your dwelling. All right, folks, we'll see you tonight. Be good to yourself. Have a great afternoon. All right, folks. Bye-bye.